Good evening, everyone. Today we are hosting a webinar in the hospitality industry, and the topic is IoT powered energy and asset management in hotels. And we have our panelist as Rahul Bhalla, who is the co-founder and CEO at Zenatix. Before we get into the webinar, a list of housekeeping items. We'll run the webinar for 45 minutes. And then there will be an open 15-minute Q&A. You can type your questions in the Q&A panel of the webinar at any point in time, and they will be answered at the end of the webinar. The slides and the webinar recording will be emailed to you after the session. And at the end of the webinar, you will receive a short survey to share the feedback about the webinar, and we would love to hear from you. So a bit about Rahul, who is our panelist and speaker today. Rahul is the co-founder and CEO at Zenatix. He, along with two other, I think a few people cannot hear me very, very clearly. I hope I'll speak up a bit, and I hope it should be audible now. So Rahul is the co-founder and CEO at Zenatix, and he, along with two other IT Delhi batchmates of his, started Zenatix in 2014. And they envisioned the rise of IoT and AI very early on and went on to solve the problems around energy efficiency and automation in small and medium buildings. It has been a long journey of 8+ years. And they have been instrumental in defining the strategy and direction of the company overall in terms of the product market fit and in terms of getting some market brands. Rahul leads sales and business development efforts and also the customer relationships for the company. With this, I would like to hand over the forum to Rahul to take it forward.
Great, thank you, Abhishek. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to sort of join you today and talk about, how IoT is making a difference in the hospitality space. I hope you guys can see me and hear me as well. Abhishek, can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Yeah, I hope that, we were hearing a little bit of noise when you were speaking, but I hope everybody can hear me clearly. So let's get started. I think this is broadly the agenda that we'll cover today. One, we'll start with talking about some challenges that we at least understand that are faced by hoteliers. We'll also talk about, how IoT is disrupting the traditional building management system, which has been there for many, many years. And we'll also talk about a real case study we have executed for a large hotel owner in the country and how they're leveraging IoT. And then, we'll have about 15 minutes towards the end, answering your questions. We hope that we're able to answer the questions today. In case we run out of time, feel free to sort of send us questions later and we'll be happy to answer them. So let's get started. I think, I obviously, we are going to put things in perspective. Energy, is your second biggest spend. In hotels, right? I mean, in a lot of, other commercial buildings, office spaces, etc., it tends to be the third biggest spend in hospitality, the second biggest spend after people cost. And within energy, electricity tends to take the majority of the share, right? So 60% roughly, as per the trends in the hotel industry report, that's the largest expense, constitutes about 60%. It could be 65% for some people, 55% for some people, but on an average, it's about 60%. Energy, goes into electricity. And, given it's a large, significant spend and, there is a significant cost focus driven throughout the COVID and thereafter as well, this is a point of attack. I think the labor cost and the people cost is hard to, control because that's a lot more market driven. You have to retain the best talent, but when it comes to energy cost, there are levers in your hand, which you can use to control that cost. So if it is, anywhere from 7-8% to 12-13% of your overall operating cost, and you reduce it by 10%, you are actually making a good 1% dent or 2% dent on your overall profit margins, right? Which is significant in today's world. So, so let's, see, how it translates into, some of the challenges, right? So, I already spoke about high energy cost as one challenge. The other challenges that we see people talking to us about is low guest comfort. Some areas are hot, some areas are cool. And especially when you own a portfolio of buildings, there is a lack of visibility at the corporate level or a director of engineering level who is managing multiple properties, that, what's going on in each property. There are other aspects, around food spoilage because refrigeration health is not properly maintained. There are equipments breaking down. There are electrical health and safety issues. So there are, these myriad of issues, which we've understood that the customers have encountered. We can run a quick poll right now, which will, you guys can, tell us that which is the pain point that you relate to the most out of these, right? That will just, set up some context for the webinar. So Abhishek, let's run the poll, and we'll show you the, poll results as well, so that you also understand. So we'll have about 60 seconds, the poll is on your screen. Request you to sort of, give us a vote. Oh, that's interesting. So we have about 60% of the people already voted. Let's quickly finish. Can I request everybody else to also press the buttons? We have just a few more left. I'll give you guys 5-10 seconds more if you want to think about it, and then answer it. Okay, I guess we have majority of the responses now, and which I can sort of share. So I've ended the poll. Abhishek, are you able to share the results?
Yeah. Yes. The result should be visible on everybody's screen now.
Yep. So I think, obviously, not surprising, 42% of the people say that it's high energy cost, followed by lack of visibility across the portfolio, electrical health and safety, and equipment breakdowns. So I think, broadly, there are really three categories in which I can sort of bucket these responses. One is energy cost. Second is equipment related issues, which could be breakdown or electrical health and safety of this equipment. And the third is really around, lack of visibility. So I think, this is, again, corroborating with our understanding as well, but it's good to know that, the same, same results we keep on seeing when we speak with our customers. So let me just stop sharing this one. Okay, I hope you guys can see my screen again. So moving on. So let's understand, how IoT is really solving, these challenges, right? And, I'm guessing that, everybody sort of, is familiar with IoT in the sense that it's Internet of Things. The technology is challenging the traditional automation systems, and it is becoming the mainstream technology when it comes to automation, when it comes to monitoring, when it comes to connecting assets in a building and, managing the health of these assets. So all of those things, come through IoT. And what it does, so IoT is not just IoT. IoT is always, having some analysis. It could be a simple, very, very simplistic analysis, or it could be a complex machine learning or AI algorithm running in. But what we, really do is we use sensors, and these are connected sensors. So these are not on-premise sensors, which just, keep the data locally on that side, but these are connected sensors and connected actuators, right? And then you generate real-time data from these systems. And what you really do is, because everything is now connected over internet, you have a central platform which provides you visibility across your buildings in a portfolio, within a building at a very granular level. It runs intelligent controls. The system can run, the IoT systems can run much more intelligent controls than traditional automation systems, because there is a lot more data enabled processing that happen, and you can drive a lot more dynamic controls. Excuse me. And then there is a whole aspect of predictive maintenance. Once you start collecting data about chiller plant systems, about refrigeration systems, about many other assets in a building, wherever you can use the data to identify the health of these assets, and predict failures, that's where the holy grail is, right? How do you reduce the breakdowns and increase the equipment life, right? And that really boils down into, broadly, I mean, there are many benefits, but it boils down to savings, energy savings, because you're now doing controls. And, it is giving you visibility that how do you need to manage the settings better. It improves your compliance, both in, terms of guest comfort as well as food safety, because now you're maintaining better temperatures. And then also reduces, about 25 to 30% breakdowns, right? And the beauty of it is that, these systems are inexpensive as compared to a BMS. And therefore the ROI, which could be a typical 3 to 4 year for a BMS, it is about 12 to 14 months or 15 months for an IoT based system. And again, these are not theoretical numbers. These are the numbers validated by our customers, that, they could achieve this ROI in so many months. And, it's a combination of savings, and savings are always more quantifiable, right? So you can always assess, how it is translating into a real ROI. Now, I think the question I sometimes hear is that, why IoT when you have BMS as an option, right? BMS systems have been there, right? And, I think, BMS systems obviously have been around for decades now, and they are good automation systems. They have, done their bit in their own age, but unfortunately, they have not innovated as much as they should have, with time. And that's where, there are gaps that are created by such systems. So I think, what IoT, helps over and above a BMS is that first, I think, it provides connected systems, and it provides a lot more visibility across the sites, which otherwise is confined to a BMS room. So, and, unfortunately, we have BMS operators which are not very highly skilled. So their interpretation of the data, their interpretation of managing the system is very, very different. But someone who is senior, a chief engineer or a director of engineering, or even the people in the leadership roles at corporates, they need different types of, data points. They need correlation with business metrics, right? How do you start relating energy data with, business metrics? For example, how do you, do you have real-time access to what is my energy consumption per room night sold for yesterday? You should not be able to, call up someone and let them do the analysis and give it to you, right? It should be just available right there on the dashboard on a continuous basis. What is it for yesterday? What is the average for 1 week? What is the average for 1 month? So that that if you're selling a room night at 5,000 rupees, right, or 10,000 rupees or 3,000 rupees, how much is your electricity cost out of it, right? Is it 300 rupees, 500 rupees, 700 rupees? We have to sort of understand that. The third is that, as I said earlier, it's 40 to 60% more cost effective, the system, right? Because the technology is such that it is a lot more hardware light. The traditional way of, doing a lot of things in the BMS or other automation systems is that you do a lot of embedded processing. You have an end device, you do a lot of embedded processing, and that makes it super expensive. What IoT does is that it enables a lot more processing on the edge side, which is like a gateway. And we'll talk about the architecture. It pulls the data, to at the gateway level, and the gateway has its own processing. But then there is a lot more processing available at a much lower cost in the cloud. So you tend to architect the systems in a way that the hardware does the job of the hardware, and the software does the software job, and they are sort of decoupled from each other. So it's software rich, hardware light technology. And it's very easy to deploy. We have battery powered wireless technology. So you monitor space temperatures, very easy to deploy a temperature sensor on a wall, which is good looking. It doesn't have any wires. The batteries run standard 2 AAA batteries, last for 24 months, even if you are, sampling at, 1 minute resolution of data, which is very, very high sampling rate. And then finally, condition monitoring driven maintenance, right? So you have a lot more data, and that data drives the decision for maintenance rather than, doing just preventive maintenance and still not having a clue when the system is going to break down. So I think all these benefits that I just spoke about, that's what you get with IoT, and you can do a lot more than a BMS, with IoT at a fraction of a cost. So I think that's where, I hope it answers that question, why IoT when it comes to an adoption standpoint. A lot of people, I think, are still sort of figuring out whether they should adopt it or not because it's new. As human beings, we tend to be risk averse, but we have also seen a lot of progressive folks who would come and say that, look, IoT is the future, and that's where we need to invest in, as compared to going back to the BMS world. So I think another question, so what I've done is that I've sort of listed questions, right, which would be on your, we anticipated which would be on your mind, right? The next question is that, what do you do when you're, some of the hotel properties already have a BMS? You have a portfolio, some have a BMS, some don't have a BMS, some have a partially functional BMS. We see it all the time when we talk to customers. And that's where, again, IoT scores over traditional systems. So if you have a BMS from one of the big four, Schneider, Honeywell, Siemens, JCI, their ability to sort of talk to each other's systems is limited, and they also don't like to do so. And therefore, what IoT does is it enables an OEM agnostic approach, right? And what we tend to do is we leverage existing hardware as much as we can, right? So for one of our customers, we had this situation, or in fact, many of our customers, we have these situations. But for one of the implementations, I recall that, there were properties which had a full BMS. So we just connected to that BMS over standard backnet over IP protocol, right, which most of the BMS systems support. There were properties which had partial BMS. You have BMS functioning on the high side, the low side one is not functioning, or the other way around. There are gaps. So what you do in that case is you connect to the BMS and then fill the gaps with IoT technology, right, which goes as a retrofit. And then there are obviously properties which are no BMS, in which case, IoT-based, BMS can be deployed. IoT-based automation can be deployed. But what it does, most importantly, is that it creates a common platform, right, which is a common AI-powered IoT platform. And, it delivers you consistent visibility. Somebody may say that, what is my laundry expense across all of my properties, right? You can actually benchmark property by property and correlate it to number of room nights sold. You can go down to that level, but then you can create consistent metrics: energy consumption per room night sold. What is my, lobby temperature across all my hotels? I want to see on common, single screen in the form of a heat map. How much energy goes into each of my laundries? How much goes into my refrigeration areas? And that's where, start developing benchmarks, and it creates opportunities to optimize. While, the control systems will continue to do their job, which is really the second benefit, which is energy cost efficiency. And the third is compliance management, asset management from breakdown standpoint, right? So I think, we've already spoken about the benefits. And then, obviously, when you start new properties, and, then you again have a choice. You may want to go for an IoT-based BMS, or a traditional BMS because your MEP consultant told you so. Or you may sort of, adopt an IoT-based BMS. So irrespective, if it's an IoT-based BMS, we will integrate that, with our platform. If it's a traditional BMS, you go to the first route that you have still deployed a BMS for some or the other reason, we'll connect to that BMS. But the idea is that how do you unify all the properties on a single platform? So moving on, how the solution works, standard, it's we will collect the data through our own hardware, through a BMS interface. That data is transmitted to the cloud, which is super secure. There is, banking level encryption that we do all secure channels, HTTPS, which is 128-bit security and encrypted security. And then on our cloud, we have security, and we have these analytics engines running, which will really drive two outcomes. One is control action, which will directly, and we'll talk about these, what these control actions can be, right? And it can directly drive energy savings, or we can identify anomalies, right? And we have realized that the best way to get someone acted as on anomaly or a problem is just create a ticket in the system. So we have an integrated ticketing system, and we'll say, there is a high approach issue of the cooling tower. There is, the set temperature in this area is very low. It could be very simple, it could be complex, but identify anomalies, create tickets, which goes through a ticketing workflow. And once people address those tickets, you would see a lot more improved compliances. You will see, reduced breakdowns. So a combination of controls as well as anomaly detection is what would drive benefits that we just spoke about. Excuse me. So what we tend to do is that also recommend our customers that, if they are not sort of super confident about IoT, take a phased approach. We say that in the first phase approach, you just do asset management without bringing in controls. It's a lightweight solution, less expensive, connects all the properties on a single platform. So in this case, what we will typically do is we'll deploy some sensors, right? And the sensors could be energy meters, temperature, humidity sensors. If UPS is a concern, we can deploy a battery voltage, earthing voltage. We can integrate with an existing BMS, or any additional sensors are required, we can easily deploy them, right? And then we collect the data, we identify anomalies and create a central platform for you to understand how your systems are performing. Get the tickets created, because the tickets are going to drive actions and tangible benefits. And again, they translate into about 3 to 5% cost savings through closure of these tickets, because closure of tickets means real actions. I'm not just showing you data and charts and graphs and reports, which are really non-actionable, but the tickets are the one which are actually creating actions and driving closures, right? And obviously, it is going to lead you to better compliances, better safety, electrical health management, and you still get an ROI within 12 to 18 months, right? And this is a typical, an architecture where you have, what do you really deploy? You have power supplies, you have HVAC systems, you have refrigeration units, other critical assets. And again, the idea in IoT is that focus on core things, right? Let's not target each and everything, because that involves cost and it just, shelves the complete project, right? And IoT is scalable. You start somewhere, demonstrate the benefit to the management, and then sort of keep up scaling the system, right? So you can deploy, and these are some use cases, right? If you deploy energy meters, you do a DG interfacing, solar integrations on the supply side, you can get energy consumption per occupied room night, per square meter, per degree day. You can do all sort of benchmarking, right? And then alerts for low power factor, transformer efficiency, alerts, all of those things, you can track your carbon footprint. A lot of, organizations are signing up for net zero goals. So that how much carbon emissions you're doing due to grid or diesel genset, and how many are being offset through your solar, right? So you can actually have sustainability initiatives driven by that tracking. On the HVAC side, you have energy meters, temperature, humidity sensors, pH, BTU meters. You can deploy sensors, and again, understand IKW per ton, your energy consumption by different HVAC components. Again, but I think, these are the things that you understand. But as I'm saying, I keep on saying this, we are going to identify anomalies, and those anomalies is what is going to drive action, right? And the same goes for refrigeration units and critical assets. And then, in the solution phase 2, right? In the phase 2, again, our approach is, start with minimal interventions. And, if you really look at HVAC controls, there could be N number of controls, but the controls that really make a difference, right? On the high side, you can modulate LWT, RWT, you can control the VFDs of secondary and condenser pumps. And on the low side, you are basically modulating the chilled water valves. You are scheduling or duty cycling the AHUs. You can modulate the VFDs of the AHUs, right? Uh, I mean, that's going to make a lot of difference. You can do other interventions. You can control dampers if you have VAVs, and if you don't have dampers, you have to install VAVs and dampers, and that's going to be expensive. But if you do these interventions, that will deliver you most of the energy savings. Then there are automated controls of exhaust fans. Big exhaust fans goes into hospitality. There are lighting systems. And, a lot of these, what I'm talking about holds true for large commercial buildings also. I mean, if these are non-hotels, because there could be some participants who are not from the hospitality industry, but come from other types of commercial buildings. I think the principles remain the same. We have customers across the board, but, I mean, they may not have the refrigeration systems like hospitality does, but a lot of other things remain the same. And then, these controls are going to drive additional energy efficiency of 8 to 12%. And you still get ROI between 12 to 14 to 18 months, right? I mean, that notion we always sort of keep constant. If you are planning to, implement IoT, take this phased approach. If you're already looking for a BMS, then maybe, consider IoT solution phase 1, phase 2 together. And, I'm 100% sure that it will deliver you value, which is a lot more than a traditional BMS system. So that's on the, solution side, that, how a solution can be provided, how it can be phased out to make sure that you are comfortable with the adoption side. Now let's talk about a case study, of a large hotel owner. So, this hotel owner actually, works with 8 hotel brands, very, very leading hotel brands in the country, 26 properties, 2.54 million of square foot overall built up area, and only 15% of the properties had actually a BMS. So, we actually have deployed our system across all their properties, all tapping all the common areas, everything that. So, we tend to obviously not get into the room because we believe that, the room air conditioning system should be, controlled by the guest and they should not be compromised. But there is a lot of energy that goes outside the room as well. And, we essentially connected all the system, and the challenges that the customer came to us was with, low comfort compliance, varying temperatures throughout the property, energy expense, of course, being high, a lot of breakdowns, electrical bill penalties due to power factor non-compliance, and so on. So what we did was we deployed a lot of, I think we probably ended up deploying 1,500 energy meters across these properties, probably 2,000 sensors connected with the BMS systems, and get the entire 2.54 million square feet on a single platform. And we set up the system. We built we created a lot of algorithms for anomaly detection. They were creating tickets on a daily basis, and which are being addressed by the chief engineer at each property. There is a central governance happening where a central person is looking at, if the tickets are being closed in a timely manner. And that is what led to, at an equipment level, there was 20% energy savings. Obviously at an overall level, there were about 3 to 5% energy savings because this is asset management. We're not doing controls there. 25% improvement in the guest comfort compliance. So the guest compliance is very easy to define, right? You define a temperature range, 23 to 25 or 22 to 24, whatever you may want to define, that becomes your compliance. 1 to 4 degree for a dairy chiller, minus 18 to minus 22 for a meat chiller. And then you sort of see what percentage of the time actually you stay in that range, right? And that becomes your percentage compliance, right? And we've seen customers, going from 65% compliance to about 90% compliance, over a period of time. And we've seen a reduction in the breakdowns as well. And then, we have actually scaled up within 6 months across all their properties. We showed our solution at 2 of the properties. They liked the solution and then sort of, scaled up. Right. And this is one example, where we reported unbalanced running of HVAC cooling towers, I mean, there were fans of, what you see is a graph between a wet bulb temperature and condenser temperature delta. And, there was a problem, which was fans of the running control cooling towers were not operating properly. Or in second case, lesser number of, these are the regions where you can see that, here you have lesser number of cooling towers operating. And this is, of course, the fine range. And then I can show you, obviously, some samples, and, overall, we partnered with Hotelivate in taking this solution to the market, which is obviously some of you may already know, the leading consulting firm in hospitality. And, there are, lots of benchmarks that you can develop, right? And this is an example of, energy consumption benchmark by per available room, per occupied room, per square foot area. You can put them into two categories: mid-scale properties, luxury properties, or lower mid-scale properties. You can do that slice, and this data is available on a real-time basis. So you can actually provide us the room night data through a API interface. I can pull the data from your system. You can manually upload the system, the room night sold data to my system. Or I can give you the energy data and you can correlate it at your end in real time, right? So either ways is easily doable. This is an example. These are the properties on. So each row is a property, right? And what you see is the time of the hour of the day, and you see the temperature. So this is temperature of all their lobbies on a single screen, and you see that the lighter areas are towards colder side, and the dark green areas are towards the higher side. So over a time, they see that this whole heat map was becoming more homogeneous in terms of temperatures that are maintained. This is an example of a cold storage, where you can actually look at the health of a refrigeration unit. And what we do is simple intervention. Deploy a temperature sensor within the cold storage, which is again a battery powered wireless sensor. We can deploy energy meter on the power supply, and energy meters are very inexpensive, right? I mean, they're easy to deploy. And what it tells us is the current, right? So you see two cold storages here. One is a black line, which is and you see the compressor cycle, duty cycle, right? The temperature is achieved, the compressor shuts down, the temperature is out of the range, compressor switches on, right? And that's how a healthy compressor operates, right? But here you see another compressor, which is mostly on all the time, right? And that's where the problem is. It is consuming, twice the energy than it should. Otherwise, if it was duty cycling, like the other compressor, it was consuming probably 40 to 50% of the energy. And because it's on for a much longer duration, it is likely to break down, right? So what we would do is that, we will not simply expect somebody to analyze this data. Our systems are going to automatically analyze this data and create a ticket in the system. And it'll say cold storage 2 at this particular property, the compressor is continuously running, right? I mean, we will simplify it to that level. So I think that's the power of data and running algorithms on that data. These are the examples of ticketing, right? As I said, you can define benchmarks. If it's a high energy consumption per occupied room, high temperature in certain areas, it could be a very simple ticket. It could be a very advanced ticket, like a cold room, compressor continuously running alert, or a high approach issue of a cooling tower. All of those things can be created as tickets in the system. And our system has a workflow which actually allows you to close the ticket. You can put it on hold. You can you can assign it to someone. You can put it on in a stop mode or a hold mode, because you ordered a material. You don't want the ticket to sort of escalate it to someone else because you already ordered a material. So I think there are capabilities in the system where you can assign a ticket to someone or change its status. So all of those things are easily possible, and it's very, very data driven. So if you forcefully close a ticket and the data is not right, the system is going to reopen that ticket, right? And the other way around, if you have fixed something, you don't need to close the ticket. If the data is fine, the system will automatically close the ticket. So I think that's how, we have architected the system, and that defines real closures overall. This is a simple example of electrical health where you are actually measuring current unbalances on circuits, you are measuring your voltage compliance, you're measuring your power factor. And if something goes out of the range, again, you can actually, raise an alarm. This is an example of refrigeration temperature compliance. That again, as I've given you the example that, the percentage compliance defines that what percentage of the time that you are actually staying within the range, right? And you can actually compare different cold storages, right? And you can see a wide distribution. And once you start addressing the tickets, so the tickets can be raised for low temperature compliance also. So if you say it's less than 60%, raise me a ticket, less than 80%, raise me a ticket. And once you start fixing those problems, and there could be many problems which at the site. There could be a compressor, a gas leakage issue. There could be a door opening issue that, the cold storage's doors are kept open. All of those things, come to highlight once you start monitoring the data. So I think, that's pretty much, I really wanted to cover, and I hope that sort of gives you a perspective on, the overall system, its benefits and how it works. Quickly talking about, the company now, so Zenatix as a company, as I mentioned, we provide IoT-based automation and monitoring solutions, with a real focus on energy management and asset management. We are backed by Hero Group, and specifically Hero Electronics, which is a corpus set up by the Hero Group, which is a $15 billion corporate, with Hero MotoCorp being the flagship business. They've created this corpus to actually invest into new age connected solution businesses. We are about 100 people strong as a company with 5 global offices, 3 in India, 1 in Dubai, and 1 in the US. About 2,500 deployments we have now, with 50,000 plus connected assets. And we collect almost 200 million data points every day to keep on sharpening our algorithms and provide more and more value to the customers. We started our life back in 2014, and we are in a growth stage right now. We are expanding internationally. We're expanding in the Middle East. We're expanding in the US and Europe as well. And like any other startup, I started the company with 2 of my co-founders. We were together at IIT Delhi. After that, I spent about 12 years doing intellectual property work, building businesses and teams in the services space. Our CTO is a master's and PhD in electrical engineering from University of California, Los Angeles. And he and his technology team has developed the entire technology in-house. And my third co-founder, Vishal, is in an MBA from Ahmedabad, and he spent about 6 years with ING before starting Zenatix with us. So that's a quick background on the company and the founders. We've done a lot of work across segments. We've done a lot of work in retail, in hospitality. Some of the very, very leading brands. Some of these names are public, and we're showing them to you. We've done a lot of work in quick service restaurants, supermarkets, retail, and some bit of work in manufacturing. But our real focus is in hospitality and retail. Retail, when I say retail, it means retail, supermarkets, and QSRs. The small size footprint stores where the BMS system does not exist. That's how we started our life. And then over time, we started doing larger buildings, and with a core focus on hospitality and some other types of commercial buildings. So that's, and I think, the last, slide, why is Zenatix, right? I think there are lots of IoT companies out there. I think that the first and foremost differentiator is that we have a full stack technology. It's built with the 8.5 years of R&D effort. When I say full stack, we have the sensors, we have the gateways, we have the IO cards, which are again wireless. We have the full stack platform from a customer facing standpoint. And unlike a lot of companies which take an approach of more of system integration, take a gateway from someone, do something on the cloud, integrate everything, it doesn't scale that way. So we've learned that very early on. There is a credible leadership. and technology talent on boards. One of the persons who is helping us expand in the US is Honeywell's ex-CTO for building technologies. He's spent about 20 years at Honeywell, and big believer of IoT. And very credible and technology talent that we have got in India, backed by hero groups, so financially stable, and a lot of experience in the space with not just 100, 200, 500 plus 2,500 plus deployments that we have gotten on board. So with that, I think, I will just wind up, and, let's, I think we're pretty much on time. I think we have 3 minutes extra. In fact, we finished 3 minutes early. So happy to, answer any questions you guys may have. So Abhishek, let's start asking the questions. Let's start inviting the questions from people. And if you already have that, let's start, going through.
Yeah, we have received one question now from Bharadwaj. Bharadwaj asks, do you have any use cases where air quality information plays a role in your line of work?
Yes, we do. Air quality, so I think, there are multiple use cases of air quality. We have been doing air quality monitoring. I think my AirPods are running out of battery. Let me just switch to, can you hear me okay, Abhishek?
Yeah.
Let me just switch to my computer. Okay. I hope you can hear me, right? Yeah. Okay. So there are multiple use cases of air quality. One is obviously, you can do air quality monitoring, and especially in the northern part of India where there is pollution is an issue, you can actually do PM 2.5, PM 10 monitoring, CO2 monitoring, VOC, air quality, or AQI overall. But then there could be action-driven use cases. For example, for one of the customers, we do CO2 monitoring based fresh air control, right? So you sense the CO2 level and say that if it's more than 800 ppm or 1000 ppm, trigger the switch on the fresh air fan, right? Or switch off after it has, gotten down to 200 or 300 level, right? So I think there are multiple such, use cases. One of our customers would have put a display, and this air quality monitoring, CO2 based fresh air control, these are the things, multiple things, whatever I've spoken about today, air quality, temperature, humidity monitoring, energy efficiency, water metering, all of them also helps you with IGBC credits. So if you're looking for IGBC ratings or any other sort of rating system, our technology can actually fetch you at least 15, 20 points. So I think so that's another area where, and I mean, a lot of our customers are thinking about getting certifications. So I think these are some of the use cases which are out there. And another customer I was talking about have put in a display where they are, put in filters and they're showing the internal PM 2.5 level, and they also show what is outside. So it just helps the guests that say what is outside versus inside, very simple use cases, but very, very helpful.
The next question is from Anil. He asks, do you offer build, operate, own, and transfer model, helping customers to offset their capex?
Yeah, so I think, so their engagement models are friendly models. So, so first of all, we tend to provide a complete solution, right? So we will manage the solution with you over a life of the system. It's unlike, an OEM would come and give you an equipment and then they're out of the site. And then you have to call them if it doesn't work, right? I mean, our system is a connected system. So if like I have shown you the data for your systems, I also collect the data, for the health of my system. So if something goes wrong, we fix it collectively or proactively. So we'll maintain the system over 3 to 5 year contract. And then, you can pay us, in a CapEx model for the hardware and an annual subscription for the software and services and the management and AMC and everything. Or we can actually amortize, we can lease it out, in a build, operate, transfer model. And, we will maintain the system
and charge you a fixed monthly fee throughout the life of the contract. So, but I think, but it's a fully managed solution. The engagement models are flexible.
The next question is from Saxena. He asks, can we collaborate with Zenatix for business prospects?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we work with a lot of partners. I mean, eventually, it's a, I mean, a lot of it is a partner-led model because, partners are a lot more closer to the customer. And, in fact, I mean, majority of our implementations are also done by partners. So, very, very happy to collaborate. Please touch base with us.
The next question is from Anil. I think it is in continuation with the previous question. He asks, what is the typical recurring expense percentage of the one-time fee that you have to pay?
That's a kind of a hard to answer question because, it's all a function of, what kind of data, what kind of hardware, what kind of use cases are we collecting. So I think it sort of varies side to side. But I think the recurring fee that we have is actually for a bunch of things. It's not just a purely software fee, it's software, cloud infrastructure, connectivity, program management, or account management service. But I think what I can say is that, it's a bang for the buck. I mean, our customers are happy paying us recurring fee because it's a that's how we put our skin in the game. Because if my system doesn't work, customers are not going to pay me for any of the recurring charges. So therefore, I ensure that these systems are maintained over their life.
Next question is from Kamlesh. He says, we are doing design and build for large corporate offices. We have all big IT companies and some banks as our clients. We would like to know how can we collaborate at design stage and also offer solution to old clients with large offices.
Sure. Yeah. Again, as I said, we're happy to collaborate. We can have separate conversations that, how the technology can go at the design level itself so that, you don't have to do a lot of retrofit. So I think, we can start early on the life cycle that, how do you provision various sensors, various actuators, and what all should go into the system. So, I mean, I think, not very different from how a BMS goes. The planning can start very early on when it comes to execution.
I think Maximus has raised a concern around access to recording and slides. So Maximus, we will be sharing both the slide deck used in the presentation and also the recording of the session for your perusal later. So moving on, the next question is from Ernest. Do you have any site in the UAE currently using your system?
Yes, I mean, we have done a bunch of deployments already. I think there are already about, I would say 20 plus deployments in UAE at the moment. I mean, it's fairly recent, our entry into the market, but we've gotten very, good traction very early on.
Next question is from Anil. I'm not getting it very clearly, but I think he wants to ask, what is the battery life for the monitoring sensor? And what is the overall life of the sensor?
Yeah, so I think,
how do you calibrate the sensor?
The sensors are very, very, robust. I mean, they last many, many years. In the battery power, so we have built these wireless sensors over a mesh technology. And unlike Wi-Fi, which is power hungry, which actually is very difficult to deploy because every node is talking to a central router. Mesh is actually multiple hops. One node talks to the other. There is redundancy in the mesh, and it's low power. So you can run it on batteries. And as I mentioned earlier, on 2 standard AAA batteries, you can actually run for easily 24 months, even if you are sampling at 1 minute. If I increase the sampling to 10 minutes, I can possibly run it easily over 7-8 years. And very, very easy to replace batteries. You can just open up the sensor, change the 2 standard AAA batteries, and we're done.
There is a follow-up question from Ernest. He says, I am taking a DBA and my research thesis is smart maintenance in FM. Is it possible to engage with Zenatix for a case study in this field?
Abhishek, I'm sorry, you'll have to repeat the question. Your voice is not.
Yeah, I am repeating it. Ernest has a follow-up question. He says, I am undertaking a DBA and my research thesis is smart maintenance and facility management. Is it possible to engage with Zenatix for a case study in this field?
Yeah, I think just write to us. I think we'll certainly look at it and we can get back to you.
I think that takes care of most of the questions we have.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for your patience. And, I'm glad that, we could spend some time together and, reach out to us if you have any follow-up questions, any requirements you have on the IoT side, and we'll be happy to sort of talk and share. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Just reminding that there will be a feedback survey at the end. So please do take out time to fill up the quick and short survey. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Please do fill out the survey. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time.